Please welcome Florida State Prosecutor Jeff Ashton. You have a lot of friends. So in your closing, first of all, thank you for coming on with us.
My
we
pleasure.
know you've got a lot on your plate. Well, you have a little less on your plate today, but boy.
Calmer today.
But in your closing statements, you painted Casey Anthony as a cold-blooded murderer of her child. So then the verdict that we saw here, not guilty. What went through your mind? You expected her to be found guilty, didn't you?
Well, we thought she would. I mean, you always know that in a jury trial, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But we felt we put on a good case and had enough evidence. So yeah, we were pretty shocked. But that's the way it goes. We understand that can happen, and I think I mouthed "wow" about 5 times.
So when people say you didn't really prove the case, how does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel that bad. I mean, we put on everything that an investigation, a really thorough investigation, over 3 years produced. So we put on every piece of evidence that was admissible, and we felt like we argued it as well as anybody could.
What about her getting on the stand, though? She didn't take the stand.
That's not up to him.
Right. But if she had done that, I'm curious what you would have asked her that might have changed this case.
Oh, we had a long list.
Do you feel, looking back, I mean, we're obviously...
We'll do it. But let me ask a question that some people are raising. You seem to feel that you did your best, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, my God, what did I say?
Yes, ma'am.
You've had a long 3 years. You know, long 3 years.
I'm so used to judges. Yes. Judge Barbara, I'm sorry.
It's the black dress.
Your black robe.
It's the black robe.
Okay. The whole business of the death penalty. It's all right. The whole business of the death penalty. If you had gone for a lesser charge, aggravated child abuse or child whatever, if you had not gone for first-degree murder, would you have had a better chance at conviction? Did you go too far?
I don't think so. I mean, if the issue was whether she was responsible at all for it, I don't really think it would have made a difference. I mean, you never know. But the facts that we had, the way we looked at them, this was a first-degree murder. I mean, it was, if the jury agreed with us about what happened, this was a first-degree murder.
So in your mind, a murderer could go walking free tomorrow after sentencing?
You know, I wouldn't have been involved in this case if I didn't think that she did it.
Right.
But you know, I've worked in the system long enough to know that if you believe in the rule of law, you have to believe in juries.
I mean, the reasonable doubt is what done you in, as they say. So the fact that you could not prove a motive and the fact that there were no witnesses, which very often happens in murder cases, but the fact that you didn't have any exact proof, did you, while the trial was going on, say to yourself, reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt?
No, when you're in the midst of a trial like that, you believe in your case.
You had an uphill battle the entire way. Sure. We had a juror who came out, an alternate juror, and he said, you did not do enough to erase the reasonable doubt from their minds. Right. How come you think you were not successful in doing that?
And what could you have done differently?
Yeah, what could you have done?
Well, I think it all came down to the evidence, you know, and you can't manufacture evidence.
No DNA evidence?
No DNA evidence.
Well, conflicting DNA.
Well, there was no DNA evidence on any of the major pieces, but that was explainable. So it was, and I don't think it was the DNA evidence necessarily. I think ultimately it came down to, at least from what the one alternate said, the cause of death. Right. And, you know, we felt that, you know, my feeling all along was that photograph, and I know that y'all have not seen it without being blurred, but
Photograph
of her, you know, her remains with the duct tape. What I'd said all along is, you know, if a jury looks at that photograph and doesn't see it the way I do, and doesn't know how she died, well, then so be it. That's.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, you know, a lot of people feel that the family may have known more than we understood them to know. I'm trying to ask this in a delicate way because I don't want to put you in an awkward position. But
I think I'm already there.
Oh no, this is it. Believe me, you're okay. Do you think if you guys had looked at this maybe from that perspective, that maybe the family was more involved, that people would have been able to come to a closer conclusion, not perhaps death, but...
The family, as far as the family knowing more or being involved, that was very, very thoroughly investigated. I mean, you know, the questions that the public have, the police had too. But so far as we could tell, the only witness that suggested any knowledge by any member of the family was the mistress, who, you know, had her own credibility issues.
But can I just go back to follow up on Whoopi's question? The family. First of all, we're still a little confused about whether the testimony of Casey's mother helped or hurt. I mean, I don't know whether they were better for the prosecution or better for the defense. And if indeed the father did abuse Casey or the brother, should they be prosecuted? So it's a two-part question, whether a help to you or a hindrance, and what should be done with the father and mother.
Well, you know, the mother was a help to both sides in a sense. I mean, she was, you know, very straightforward with certain parts of her testimony. You know, she didn't mince words about the 31 days, the lies, the excuses. You know, she did try to take credit for the chloroform search, which was eventually, I think, pretty conclusively disproven. So, you know, she was a mixed bag, and I know her loyalties were sorely tested throughout this case.
Okay. Should the father be prosecuted if indeed there was abuse of Casey?
Well, it would depend on what the evidence was. You know, obviously, none of us know what went on in that home, but I don't have any reason. Since the only witness...
You have reasonable doubt.
Well, yes, I do. Since the only witness to that is Casey, who doesn't exactly have a record of telling the truth.
No credibility there.
Right. You would think that would not be very credible. And you know, there were suggestions by Casey that didn't come into evidence because it would have been hearsay, that maybe her brother may have touched her in some way.
You got a whole bag of...
But nothing about the father. Okay. So, you know, that the father allegation was all new from the time of the trial. So, you know, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, just as you would Casey.
You know, we're sitting here talking to you. You're thoughtful. You're warm. One thing that bothered a ton of people watching your closing statements, I think, was a tone of sarcasm, and then when the defense was speaking, any sort of laughter. Do you think that? Do you think? Yeah, they just thought, okay, it's
guilty as charged.
Right. Do you think that had the jury already made up their minds, or do you think that affected or swayed them at all?
I don't think it did. Okay. I think that at that point in the trial, everyone was exhausted and everyone's nerves were on edge, and everyone was not perhaps as calm as they should be.
Well,
but no, I don't think so.
Okay. What about you and Jose Baez? You got into it quite a bit. Do you think at all that had anything to do with it, or no? Okay.
If we're talking about that, they had to prove the case and the cause of death, and they were so strict about it, then why would they care about this type of thing?
Do you think he did a good job?
I think he did a good job. Not a perfect job, but I think he did a good job.
Well,
yes,
perfect enough as clients.
Absolutely.
What do you think he could have done?
No, I think he did a very good job. I've said before, Jose is a relatively new lawyer, you know, 3 to 5 years experience, and for that he did great. He'll get better, and I think, you know, another lawyer might have done it different in some ways, but the proof is in the pudding.
You know, we have all been asking. I mean, this was such a huge media.
Oh, it's insane.
Is it because she was pretty? Why did people care so much?
Or white?
No, I think what it was, oddly enough, is I think because this happened so close in time to another case called Trenton Duckett, which was another child disappeared, and that's the one where the mother committed suicide. So no one ever knew what happened, and I think people saw this case as, oh, it's the same, and now we're going to find something out, and it just went nuts.